Today, we're diving straight into the brilliant, incredibly perceptive world of poet Iris Lennox. Now, if you know Lennox's work, you know she has this absolute gift for observing the natural world. But she doesn't just, describe trees and rocks. She actually uses these massive physical landscapes, the vast desert, ancient stone, and rushing water, as a literal map to decode human emotion. It's like a decoder ring for the soul. In this explainer, we're going to break down these recurring symbols and figure out exactly how nature's quiet, passive wisdom contrasts with our very active and, let's face it, usually pretty messy human experiences.
Okay, let's dive into this with a powerful opening quote from her poem piece. She writes, "Entering the desert requires leaving. News, screens, the anticipatory leap prompted by notification dings, it all has to go." I love this because Lennox is immediately setting a hard boundary right out of the gate. She's explicitly contrasting our loud, hyper-connected, totally chaotic modern lives with the profound stillness of the desert. To truly understand this landscape, and really to understand ourselves, we absolutely have to strip away the noise first.
Which brings us to the core question that's going to guide our whole explainer today. How does the natural world reflect our deepest emotional battles? Lennox is constantly asking us to look outward so that we can look inward. So as we go through this, keep that question right in the back of your mind. We're not just looking at a geology or botany lesson here, we are literally looking at blueprints for survival, vulnerability, and resilience. Act 1. Welcome to the desert. Let's symbolically step right out of that frantic human world and into the wide, sun-baked space of the desert. Think about how we usually react to stress. When we face external pressures or pulls, what's our default? We fight. We tense up. We tighten our muscles and put up our guard. But look at the desert. When a fierce wind whips through the desert grasses, they don't stiffen up and snap. They show stillness, patience, and this really profound strength of yielding. Lennox is pointing out that our human instinct to constantly fight everything is just completely exhausting, and there's this massive hidden strength found simply in letting go. She captures this so beautifully in her poem Languidity. She describes someone who has learned to stop fighting every fall, to stop tightening at every pull, to stop mistaking the giving of weight for the losing of self. Notice how she perfectly connects the physical, literal sway of the desert grasses bending in the wind to a deep emotional realization. Yielding isn't collapsing or giving up, right? It's a dynamic, trusting response to the forces moving around you. And this brilliantly illustrates the core of what she calls languidity. She takes this word that we usually associate with, laziness or weakness and completely flips it on its head. She redefines it as an immense, quiet, emotional strength. It's about stopping the mistake of thinking that giving weight means losing your actual self. It actually takes tremendous courage to let yourself be moved by life without feeling like your core identity is crumbling. Act 2. The Memory of Stom. Let's move to and see how this builds as we leave the swaying grasses and descend deep, deep down into the canyon to encounter her next major symbol, ancient, unmoving rock. If the grasses teach us how to yield, the stone teaches us about deep time, rigid boundaries, and just ultimate raw resilience. In her poem Curiosity, Lennox looks at the canyon walls and reads them like a history book. We start at the top with the Kaibab limestone from recent millennia, go down to Toraweep from millions of years ago, deeper into the Cacanino sandstone from hundreds of millions of years ago, all the way down to the Vishnu schist, which is 2 billion years old. That is an almost unfathomable weight of time. So, what can a 2-billion-year-old rock actually teach us? Well, it endured intense geological heat, it formed under crushing immense pressure, but crucially, and this is the big takeaway here, nothing was erased. Everything it went through is still contained within its form. It is the ultimate symbol of resilience. Lennox is using deep time as a direct, tangible metaphor for human emotional endurance. Just like that stone, we are formed by the heat and pressure of our own lives. Every trauma, every single joy, every experience, it's all contained right there in our layers. But stone isn't the only thing out there with boundaries, is it? In her poem Justice, she turns her attention to the cactus. On one hand, you have the sharp cactus spine. That's the careful architecture of survival. It represents our human defenses, the boundaries we build to keep people safely at a distance. But then, from that exact same spot of hardened defense, comes the unfurling petal, sudden softness, vulnerability. It's taken a massive risk to bloom. And I just love this specific line. Red, rising at the tips, petals pushing through the same points that once kept distance, softness unfurling precisely where sharpness was required. It perfectly highlights the messy, beautiful duality of human emotion. Have you ever noticed that? Our deepest vulnerability, our greatest capacity to actually love and be open, often springs directly out of our most defensive, hardened boundaries. We build the armor so that eventually we have a safe space to bloom.
Act 3. The movement of water.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we shift the narrative to the river at the very bottom of the canyon. Water is a huge recurring symbol for Lennox. It represents the complex duality of our emotions, the nature of hope, and just the relentless passage of time. In her poem Hope, she breaks down a river's anatomy. Think about surface water, the light scattering, the quick flickers, those ungraspable flashes. She maps that to joy. Joy is fast, it's visible, but it's fleeting. Then think about the deep current underneath. It has heavy weight, a steady direction, a completely unseen pull. She maps that to peace. A river carries both at exactly the same time. She's telling us that true hope relies on that deep, unseen current of peace, even when the joy on the surface is splashing wildly and making all the noise.
And the thing about the river is it never stops. In Field Notes from a Splintered Bench, she tracks the river's physical journey. Water folds over a stone. It slides around a half-sunken branch. It just keeps moving forward, carrying whatever leaves and foam are in its way. She's explicitly mapping this physical movement to the relentless, ongoing flow of human experience. Things absolutely get in our way. Stones, branches, obstacles. But time, just like water, simply folds right over them and keeps on going.
Sitting by that moving water, she notices a carved heart on a wooden bench that's slowly fading away, which prompts this incredibly beautiful thought. Where do all the lovers go who leave their hearts on benches, in trees, and in one another's hands? She takes this physical observation of a splintered bench and turns it into a deep reflection on memory. Time and the river eventually wash away our moments and our connections, leaving just these faint, beautiful traces behind. Act 4, Nature versus Human Emotion. Which brings us to the culmination of our whole journey here. We've seen how nature brilliantly models strength, resilience, and hope. But how do we, as actual humans, interact with that? In her poem, What Does Paper Know of Life?, she explores the deeply physical acts of speaking, writing on paper, and using ink. Paper remembers dates and names. It remembers who went silent just to feel safe. But to put ink on that paper, to actually speak the truth, requires us. She notes that even a whisper requires physical, muscular force, cartilage and breath meeting pressure. Language literally enters the body and changes how a person stands. Human expression isn't passive. It is an active physical force, exactly like roots breaking right through limestone. And that brings us to this incredibly poignant line. What does paper know of life? Only what we tell it. Nature is vast, it's wise, but ultimately it is indifferent. A piece of paper, a block of wood, a slab of ancient stone, they don't speak for themselves. We are the ones who have to bridge that gap. We have to take the resilience we learn from the earth and use our own deliberate courage to actually speak it into existence. So the crucial point is this. Nature's elements, the stone, the water, the desert, they passively exist. They endure and they hold memory without even trying. But human art, our paper, our ink, our voices, those require us to actively inject life, meaning, and truth. Nature gives us the blueprint for resilience, for sure, but humanity has to actively choose to articulate it. We have to do the heavy lifting to turn pure endurance into actual meaning.
We've seen how Iris Lennox uses the entire physical world to decode our messy internal lives, from the unmoving stone to the yielding desert grasses. So I want to leave you with this lingering question taken directly from her own work. Where else does yielding carry this much strength? Seriously, think about your own emotional landscape for a second. Where in your life could you maybe stop fighting the wind and instead find the profound strength to simply lean? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep exploring those landscapes, both outside and in.